Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome, friends, to Kardec Radio, the Spiritist Society of Virginia, here in our Friday Inspirational Talk. Some people think that it's just a talk, but it's not. It's an educational moment. It's a therapeutic moment. It's so important to study. Leon Denis says in the book After Death, in a chapter that was recently studied at the Spiritist Society of Virginia on its Sundays Zoom meetings, which you can participate. It's always at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And there we know about the importance of studying. How are we going to create new habits, educate ourselves, if we don't renew our instructions? What we know thus far doesn't bring us renewal until we actually know something new, right? So studying is so important to rid ourselves of beliefs that have brought us to stagnation and surrendering ourselves to the understanding of life in its greater picture. But not only that, the good spirits assigned by God to care for us, the protector spirit, the protecting spirits, they use this time in which we make an effort to nourish ourselves, to visit our homes, to visit our loved ones, to visit ourselves, to operate through us. That does not mean we're not going to go through what we need to go through, but it's going to be much easier because they will be with us. So this moment is a moment that has multiple purposes. That's why we need to begin with a message to bring our minds from the worries of daily lives into this moment. Practicing mindfulness, and by doing so, we can immerse ourselves in higher communication with God through our prayer. So that's why we're going to invite our dear Camila to read a very special message for us. Right, Camila?
Right, Vanessa, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Today, we will read a beautiful and very important message from the book, Our Daily Bread, chapter 109, and it's called 3 Musts. And it starts with a saying of Jesus, "Thus I say to you, ask, and it shall be given to you. Seek, and you shall find. Knock, and the door shall be opened to you." Ask, seek, knock. These 3 musts recommended by Jesus were not spoken without a special meaning. In the tangle of the struggles and debts of the earthly experience, it is crucial for people to learn to ask for a pathway to freedom from the old chains of suffocating conventions, sterile prejudice, empty devotions, and unbreakable habits. It is necessary to vehemently and decisively desire to get out of the dark thicket in which most individuals have lost sight of the eternal interests. Immediately thereafter, it is imperative to seek. Seeking consists of selective effort. The field is located with inferior attractions, some of which are adorned with luring appeal. It is crucial to find the worthy and sanctifying way to act. Many run after dangerous mirges, like moths fascinated with the light of the fire. They come from far away, get too close to the flame, and consume the blessing of their body. It is imperative to learn to seek what is truly good. Once the spiritually constructive path is established, the time comes to knock on the door of spiritual growth. Without the mallet of methodical effort and without the chisel of goodwill, it is extremely difficult to sculpt the resources of the corporeal life into luminous works of divine art meant for spiritual happiness and eternal love. It is not enough, therefore, to pray without direction, to seek without examination, and to act without a lofty objective. Let us ask the Lord to free us from primitive animality. Let us seek the realm of sublime spirituality and work for our place within it in order to make ourselves faithful instruments of the divine will. Ask, seek, knock. This trilogy of Jesus holds a special meaning for students of the gospel in every era.
Thank you, Camila, for bringing to us such a beautiful reading that reinforces the need of our co-creation. Many people are born thinking, oh, I was born lucky. Oh, I was born unlucky. That doesn't exist. Luck doesn't exist. There is only effort and conquests. And we're not talking about material things. Also material things, but mostly immortal things, virtues. Everything is a conquest of the spirit, and we only do so by focusing on what God wants us to do. So let us connect with the On High to feel what we are going to ask, because we need to ask what we really need for immortality, and thus we'll find it. Dear Mother, Father God, for many lives, we've asked sometimes the impossible, and actually the impossible, to rule the world. What an illusion. We thought about being immortal in the flesh. There were times in lives in which we thought we were even gods or semi-gods. Thank you for letting us rehearse steps towards co-creating with you, even though they were in distorted ways. They created suffering around us and inside of us as well in this life. Thanks to the innumerable prophets of all times, but especially Jesus, and the works of Spiritism, we understand that we need to practice being spirits temporarily incarnated on earth, preparing ourselves for the great transition. So making choices that will be guilt-free. We've come to understand that the only pathway is through thinking of the general good. And thus, we gather together tonight, willing to learn something we haven't learned, seeking the good throughout this hour as a practice of mind over matter, disciplining ourselves during this hour to allow the spirit doctors to pay a visit to us, to our loved ones, and recalibrate ourselves for this life. Thank you for your generosity, for your kindness, and for your abundant, infinite love. We feel so loved by you that we feel the need to expand this love towards everyone we encounter by thinking of their needs and be willing to reach out. Do not allow us to think so much of ourselves. So thank you for allowing us to grow through challenges, especially during this pandemic, that is giving us new levels of endurance and resilience, boosting our optimism as we seek the good in the midst of so much. May tonight we feel your presence even closer, and so be it. All right, so before we ask Carol and Paloma to join us, to lead us into the beauty of Spiritism, we are going to bring the Spirit's Book moment, okay? So here we have Kardec, right? All right, so let us bring Kardec closer to us. Kardec, in 1857, published the Spirit's Book. How would our lives be today without that book? In that book, we'll find, as Mentor Joseph says, the constitution of our souls. Some people say babies are born without a manual. No longer. Since 1857, we have a manual. But it's a manual with 1,019 kind of troubleshooting questions and answers we need to read to understand ourselves and our children, to really build a new society. And today, we're going to go through, in this Spirit's Book moment, one question. The question is, okay, hold on. This is the question of $1 million in spiritual money. We're just joking, it doesn't exist. Question 931. Why are the suffering social classes more numerous than the fortunate ones? What a question. We love Kardec's questions. When people say, Vanessa, my loved one is so rational, they can't grasp Spiritism. Well, if they were, they would grasp Spiritism. Sorry to say, but that's the reverse. When we really want to reason, we grasp it, because Kardec is very logical. Why? There are more people suffering than people who seem not to be suffering, we say. Well, that's exactly what the spirits answer. No one is perfectly happy. Those who are looked as fortunate often hide poignant afflictions. Suffering is everywhere. However, in response to your thought, I will say that what you call the suffering classes are more numerous because the earth is a place of expiation. When humans have finally transformed it into the habitat of the good and of good spirits, men and women will no longer be unhappy in this world. It will be a terrestrial paradise for them. First, we love the statement. So logical. No one is perfectly happy. So true. The other day when we were studying, even us as spiritists, Some people think because we're mediums, the spirits talk to us, we're never going to get sick. We're never going to have financial problems. But where is that written? I've never read, because the master of all masters, Jesus, our guide and model, he was crucified. And we didn't understand that yet. Because we still think that those who look perfect in their lives, like, oh, they have a family, they have the best cars, the best houses, and they pray to God together, they are blessed. No, everybody's blessed. And that is just an appearance. Because on the behind the scenes, everybody suffers. Everybody has afflictions. Why? Because of our level of evolution. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, and this is what, years later, 6 years after the publication of the Spirit's book, the Gospel according to Spiritism comes in its chapter 3 to show to us what is happening on earth. We are living at a time of trials and atonements, expiations, which means our school will teach us greater endurance because we're going to go through tests, greater resilience because of trials, and because we're going to redress difficulties of the past. Sometimes we're going to suffer on our own skin, things, but always in a minimal way that we made others suffer. When we read the history of humanity, we ask, who is on the behind the scenes, on the making of humanity's history? All of us. So, based on our history, we are not surprised that we are living what we're living today, the pandemic. Because even a simple vaccine is complicated. Our ignorance on earth is so tremendous that even in a country like the United States, we have a president that is making efforts to make people understand that it's important to vaccinate. A country where some of the best universities in the world are located. And yet, our ignorance is immense because we're still fighting against the very science that is given to us, showing to us that no one is perfectly happy. Ignorance hurts. Those who are living in palaces, in big mansions, they have huge problems. You know it, I know it. I don't know anybody who is perfectly happy on earth. So, why do we go through afflictions? Because we need to grow. So we want to be good students. The bottom line of question 931 of the Spirit's book is mostly to tell us, don't envy anybody, because everybody has issues, rest assured. And second is, let us focus, because in the curriculum of the earth, we are supposed to be challenged, we're supposed to go through tests, we're supposed to redress previous choices, and it's no time to sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, because the show on earth is still not going to be played, because we still have challenges to surpass. That doesn't mean we're not going to be happy, because it depends on the way we look at it. As Jesus said, when we bring you the good news, embrace it, because it's going to bring you joy. The joy of living, knowing that hope is around the corner, because this shall pass, as Mother Mary used to say. But we need to have the courage to face the truth. And that's the major problem that we have in our level of evolution on earth. We have a hard time facing the truth. We're still childish. We want to escape away. We want to create fantasies. No wonder we see so many problems in life in terms of mental health because people don't want to handle the truth. But how can we handle the truth? With the good news that we're never alone. God never forsakes us. We have more help than we imagine, and lots of resources, even only if we surrender to it. And that's why today we finish the Spirit's Book moment, opening our session here about the topic today. About Spiritism. What's Spiritism? I'll bring Paloma and Carol here with us, but share a story very briefly, but you can listen to it better tonight at 11 p.m. It's a true account of Kardec one day in 1860, few years after he published the Spirit's Book. You'll see, he published in 1857, 7 years later, the Gospel, but in between, he published the Medium's Book. But in 1860, in a cold morning of April 1860, he was tired. He was somewhat overwhelmed and downcast. Don't be surprised, we're just so humans. And then kindly, his wife brought him a package. He opened. There was a book and a letter. First, he opened the letter. He read the letter. You see the details. Tonight at 11 p.m., to cut it short. A man who, for reasons that you hear tonight at 11, he wanted to commit suicide. When he was at Pont-Marie by the Seine, the bridge, the famous bridge, he wanted to throw himself in the waters. He felt something. It was a wet book when he got it, the Spirit's Book. And somebody saying, this book saved my life. He started reading, and it saved his life. He tells more details. Now he gives it and more details to Kardec. Kardec brings the book closer to his heart. He stands up, opens the window, sees people passing by, women, men, workers, elderly people, and realizes that he needs to continue doing his best because Spiritism is saving lives. So what's Spiritism? Right, Paloma?
Yes.
What is Spiritism?
Yes, friends, we are here today with a very special talk as we're, always talking about Spiritism, Spiritism, Spiritism. But what is Spiritism? There is a lot of confusion. There is a lot of actually misconceptions when you talk to people and they're like, oh, Spiritism is just talking to spirits. No, friends. It is not only about talking to spirits. There are a lot to Spiritism. And today we're going to recall these foundations. Of course, these are teasers for us to find the Spirit's Book and all the other books that we're going to reference and study more. It's impossible for us to cover the works of Kardec in 1 hour. It is just to really tease us. So let us start with the basics. Sure. What is Spiritism? And Kardec brings on this book, which is called What is Spiritism, where he compiles, he condenses a lot of the information that you find in the other books. And he says, Spiritism is a science that deals with the nature, origin, and destiny of spirits and their relation with the corporeal world. Okay, he didn't say the science of talking to spirits, as we focus heavily on. He's talking about us. When he's saying spirit, he's talking about spirits that are incarnated and discarnated, us. And he says science. Why? Because there is a methodology to this. Spiritism that didn't just show up. Kardec was brought in to understand phenomena that was happening in France at his time. He logged it, he studied it, he created a methodology as a scientist. He didn't just go head in and believe it. He rationalized. We can see by studying the Spirit's book, in the Spirit's book moment, that his questions, he's thinking of the problems and asking the higher spirits, why this, why that? He's understanding it. And Spiritism is here for us to rationalize it. So when we're talking about the foundations, it is talking about what do we understand and how are we processing this information. And if we have doubts, we go back to the Spirit's book and we find the questions to help us resolve them. These are questions that most of them are in here. And of course, friends, if you have questions during the presentation, you are welcome to put on the chat. And at the end, we might be able to address it, all right? So let's jump to the foundations, what we're calling the elementary notions. In Spiritism, we have 5 pillars. You cannot say you are a Spiritist and don't believe in reincarnation. Can't happen. In Spiritism, we believe in God. We believe in God. We believe in the immortality of the soul, reincarnation, the plurality of worlds, and the communication with spirits. Let us break those down one by one together. In the existence of God, Kardec says, God is the supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things. Let us pause. How did Kardec get there? Because he was a professor, he wasn't like a religious man. How did he come to find out that God is a supreme intelligence, the first cause of all things? He was thinking, well, we know there's an action, a reaction, everything comes from somewhere. He asked the spirits. Oh, yes, he did. Question number 4 on the Spirit's book. And the Spirit said, an axiom in science states, so in our science, human science, it states, there's no effect without a cause. Look for the cause of things which are not the work of human beings, and your reason will provide the answer. Your reason. So friends, right now, breathe in with me. Okay, where did the air come from? Where did it come from? I didn't create the air. I'm sure none of my friends from the Spiritist Center created the air. Where did it come from? It came from somewhere. From God. Did we create our own body? No. Did we create anything out in nature? No. It came from somewhere. So let us think. God. We call God the supreme intelligence. It's not a God that we can picture, we can touch, a he or a she. Is the first cause of all things. We need to feel this. It is critical for us to have this relationship with God. Do we believe in God? And the next part, when we study the existence of God, is understanding God's nature. God is eternal. No beginning, no end. It's infinite. It's immutable. It doesn't change. Because if it changed, friends, God would be like us humans. One day we're good, one day we're not so good. We change our minds. But God, as the supreme intelligence, is immutable. It doesn't change. It's immaterial. We can't touch it. God is everywhere. It's unique. There cannot be 2 gods. There's only one. And that's pretty clear for us. So if we say, oh, we have multiple gods, in Spiritism, we understand this very clear. God is unique. You can call it different names, but God is God. Only one. And it's all powerful. God knows more. God knows it all. God does it all. Supremely just and good. And that's key for us. Why? Because we tend to judge. We judge even God. And that's when we take a step back and rationalize. Our heart might be feeling, why is this happening to me? Why is God punishing me? But God is just and good. Why would God punish anybody? We rationalize. God doesn't. God is just. God is good. God gave me my life. God gave me free will. Oh, okay. I created the situations in my own life, not God. But God knows and created us to be perfect. He cares for us. He knows we're going to get there. He's not judging. So right now, we need to figure out, where is our relationship with God? I'm a spiritist. Do I say, I believe in God, and I feel it in my heart, and I know it in my mind? God is here. That's number one for us. Friends, it's foundational. We cannot say we're spiritists and not believe in God, all right? Next one, immortality of the soul. So if we're talking about studying the relationship of the worlds as a spirit, the next step is, okay, then we don't die. The soul continues, the spirit lives. The only difference is where we are. In which realm are we currently living? So Paloma right now is incarnated, but she might not be next time. And on the preface of the Messengers, Emmanuel says, physical death is not an unbalanced leap. It doesn't happen out of nowhere. It is simply an evolutionary step. What is the step for us, friend? As spirits, we have a spirit that is enveloped by the perispirit and connects to the body. That's when we are incarnated. So right now, we have a perispirit that is connected to the body and is doing this intermediation with the spirit. When we discarnate, what is the difference? We have the spirit that is still enveloped by the perispirit, but there's no body. The material, the physical body, goes to the ground, goes back. The flesh stays. But our spirit continues. The immortality of the soul, we don't disappear to dust. Of course, this certainty of the continuation of the soul happens when we see mediumistic meetings. There's no way for us to doubt when we see the exchanges, the dialogues, or if we see Chico Xavier's books that are all works from the higher realms. Certainty that we don't die. And that's why for us spiritists, we need to revisit our idea of death. Oh, but let's not talk about it, Paloma. It's so morbid. No, friends, it's not morbid. Emmanuel just told us it is simply an evolutionary step. One day we're there, one day we're here. One day we're there, one day we're here. Until the time will come that we won't need to come back as in the body. We'll be just spirits. This picture was mediumistic received, and it's and the description of it is on the Heaven and Hell. It just talks to us about how this transition happens. We're not going to go much into the detail, but it's for us to see that eventually our body rests, our perispirit hovers over it, and then the fluidic links are cut and we are separated from the body and we're able to proceed to the spiritual realm. Sometimes these bonds are tighter, which means discarnation is a little bit harder. Sometimes those connections are easier to cut. Most likely in those scenarios, if we have an easy discarnation, is because we were not materialistic. So if we are afraid of death, we need to rethink our current life in our relationship with our material things. And it also doesn't need to be only objects. We can be very materialistic when we are connected to titles, when we are connected to our social status, when we are connected to our family. Oh, yes, we can be connected to our family and be grounded by that during the discarnation. So something for us to reflect on. Next foundation in Spiritism is reincarnation. And we talk a lot about reincarnation, and it's not a topic that is only on Spiritism, friends. Of course, there are other religions that talk about reincarnation. We've had in Asian civilization a lot of information and beliefs around the immortality of the soul and reincarnation. What is to reincarnate? So reincarnate. Incarnate is the flesh, to come to the flesh again. Some things that shows to us this evidence of reincarnation, that feeling of deja vu, like, oh my God, I've been here before. I've met this person. Or some dreams and nightmares that are recurring and feel very vivid. It could be that you are reliving past lives, spontaneous flashes, phobias that you can't explain where they came from, sometimes also from previous lives, unusual abilities, right? When we think of Mozart playing the piano and writing orchestras at such a young age, where did that come from? In Spiritism, we understand from reincarnation. Of course, he developed those abilities in prior lives, probably over many lives. Why do we reincarnate? Because that's a big question. We're like, oh, if it's so good in the spiritual realm, why do we have to come back? Why can't we just stay there and be happy there? Why do we need to come back to planet Earth, a planet of expiation? Kardec asked that question. Of course he did. He wants to know, why do we need to incarnate? And the Good Spirit says, one, that's the way for us to learn and to reach perfection, to progress. If we're just there and not being challenged to the issues that we need to develop, which is very unique to each one of us, we wouldn't develop. It is like riding the bike. You get your bike and you're being challenged to try again. And then you learn how to ride that bike. And then you outgrow the bike. You need a new bike. So you come back, get another bike, and now you learn new tricks on it. And that's what we're going to be doing over and over again until we have mastered all the skills we need to be a pure spirit like Jesus. We need to come back to make amends. So hopefully we're making amends every day. We're praying to make amends with the spirits that are connected to us and not letting it for another reincarnation. But if we don't, we will certainly have to make amends in the next life. And sometimes we reincarnate as missionary spirits. Those spirits that come to really help the many planets, including ours, to elevate the vibration, to bring new things. We know that, for example, the technology advancement, they don't just come from us. They're sent from above, where the advancements are much higher. If we think we have cell phones now, they've had it way before us. When we read No Solar, we get a glimpse of the technology that already exists in No Solar. And as a reminder for us, No Solar is still on the, it's in the spiritual realm, but it's not like a super level in the dimension. It's on the top of the umbral. So we can only imagine what is above that, the advancements that are being sent to us, and we're going to see very much, including the vaccines. Technology, science, medicine, engineering comes from the higher realms. Missionary spirits come and brings it to us. Missionary spirits like Chico, that wrote more than 500 books to teach us. There's no way we're going to reach perfection without having this many existences. Like it's on Spirit's book, question 166. By experience the trial of a new existence, we're going to achieve purification. How do we reincarnate? This is very complex. There are lots of details. But in No Solar and the Missionaries of the Light, they give us some idea of what happens. Friends, it takes a lot of work to help us to reincarnate. And that's why they say this reincarnation is so precious. The good spirits took such a good care of us and placed us here in this body, in this moment together. We need to reflect. They have a ministry of regeneration. They plan the physical body. They plan who are we going to come with. It is not easy, especially if we need to have amends. We need to make amends. These are spirits that, naturally don't want to be together. There's work that goes into it that puts those spirits together to give them the opportunity of forgiveness. There are laboratories, they're looking at DNA, fluids. And then eventually, once we're ready to reincarnate, they have to shrink our form to fit in a little baby's body. It takes a lot of work. So when we think of suicide, we're not only taking our life away. We are not following our plan that we agreed to. We're not allowing the spirits that are coming with us to make these amends or to work together to fulfill their part. And we are wasting all this team of spirits, their time and their effort and their love away. And eventually, we're going to have to go through it again in another existence, but mostly, probably harder. And this is why it brings to us a big question, which is also critical in Spiritism. When does reincarnation happen? It happens at conception. So we do not support abortion. There are no circumstances that we will support abortion. Why? Because we just learned that everything is done by God. God has a plan. It is prepared in the spiritual realm. There is the spirit connected at the moment of conception. If we take a life away, even if it's that beginning of the pregnancy, we are taking away that spirit. Abortion, it's criminal. It is murder. It is harsh, I understand, but it's the truth. We have to talk about it. And when we encounter a situation where somebody comes to us and says, I'm thinking of doing an abortion, it is our obligation to say it's a mistake and explain to them why. The same way Kardec left the book on the bridge and saved one life, and that person is going to save another life, when we're put in that situation, what would we do? Would we save that life or try to save the life? It is our duty to be really clear where we stand on this. There's no way that we can support abortion, because at conception, there is life. And there's beauty to that. It is life. It is divine. It's God's creation in a woman's body. Another topic for us, which is super interesting, because as science evolves and we're seeing this exploration of Mars and a talk of maybe finding, life there, and then there's always conversation of listening to sounds that are unusual. In Spiritism, we know there is life everywhere. We would be very selfish to imagine that God created us and that's it. God made us special and we're the only ones. No. God is ever expanding. Creates. There are many worlds and there are many dimensions, and it's full of people or spirits. And Jesus said, there are many dwellings in my Father's house. He said he couldn't explain because back then we wouldn't understand. But today, in the advancement of science, we are already aware that most likely, and even NASA said that we will for sure find life outside of planet Earth. Now, there are different evolution scale of the planets. We have primitive worlds, worlds of trial and expiation like planet Earth, regenerative worlds, happy worlds, and celestial worlds. Primitive worlds, we can imagine that it's like caveman style. If we had to imagine no industry, no invention, hard life. Worlds of trial and expiation, we don't need a lot of description because we can feel on our skin what it is to live on planet Earth. There's still a lot of evil, but there's goodness. Regenerative world, what we're aiming for by working together and doing our part, friends, we're aiming for this transition. Evil still present, but is not as prevalent. Happy world like Jupiter, good is predominant. It's all good. And celestial worlds where we're going to see only good and pure spirits. Now we got to a topic that's where a lot of time people focus. Oh, Spiritism is the communication with spirits. That's what we do. Of course, that is certainly something that happens. But since we're all spirits, we are constantly communicating. It is not only the mediums. And that's something for us to stop and imagine. Okay, if we are constantly communicating, who am I communicating with? It can be with other incarnate spirits. Like sometimes we're thinking of someone and they call you. And you're like, oh, I was just thinking about you. It's no mistake. You were connected. Or discarnate spirits. Some people can hear what they're saying. Most of us can't. But nevertheless, we are being influenced by these thoughts. Kardec asked, question 459, do spirits influence our thoughts and our actions? Answer. Their influence upon them is greater than you suppose, for it is very often they who direct both. Meaning, friends, we are being constantly influenced. There is this exchange happening at all times. How does that happen? We are always attracting and emitting. It's the law of the mental field. It's like a magnet. We are vibrating thoughts and feelings, positive and negative, and we're going to attract exactly what we're emitting, and it's going to stay with us in our mental field. And because it's around us, we keep connecting with other spirits, incarnate or discarnates. They will connect with us with our habits, the type of music we like listening to, the type of books we like reading, the type of TV we like watching, the type of things we talk about, the type of conversations we have, the type of, fun we want to have. Oh, I like going on a walk. You're going to get spirits that like going on a walk. Oh, I like going to a bar. Then you're going to get spirits that want to go to the bar. That's how it happens. We are constantly attracting and emitting. We don't have to be an ostensive medium for this communication to happen. That is a misconception. Oh, I'm not a medium, so I don't have to think about this. Friends, we are all mediums. It's just the level of perception that changes. But we are being influenced at all times. We are constantly being emitting and attracting to us. And how do we know what we are emitting and attracting? Look what's happening in your life. That's how we see it. If we are having relationships that seem so destructive, why is this happening? Let us analyze it. What am I emitting? Let us change our thought process. Let us do affirmation. Change these negative thoughts for positive thoughts, and life will change. It is important for us to understand this because we like sitting, on the corner on this, I'm not a medium, so I don't need to understand this. I don't do the communication of spirits, but we do. We do it all the time. And we can't talk about spiritism and communicating with spirits without talking about how do we work in spiritism? What are the characteristics when we are exercising spiritism with Jesus? And we have a fantastic role model that was incarnated not too long ago, that he discarnated. We were blessed by having his books, Chico Xavier, by having videos that we can listen with, him talking. We can hear interviews. And he really demonstrated to us, really, really, what it is to live on planet Earth, to go through trial and expiations. And even though what we perceive as suffering, he fulfilled his mission with high scores. How did he do that? How didn't he fall into the traps of so many other mediums fall? We know what it is because they tell us. Humility. Chico never expected anything from anybody. He never said he was greater than anybody. He understood his position. He was very humble. Despite his knowledge, he would always say it came from the higher realms, because it did come from the higher realms. And he just said it. It came from the higher realms. I didn't say this. He was selfless. Selfless. And friends, being selfless when you don't have anything is hard. Imagine that there were times that Chico didn't have food. And he would get food delivered to him because somebody gave him a vegetable. And he would look at the vegetable, and whoever knocked on the door, he would give to that person. He was hungry. Would we do that if we were hungry? I don't know. It's very hard. He was benevolent towards everyone. The accounts of Chico Xavier, for hours in lines of thousands of people, and he would go one by one and talk to them, kiss their hands. Benevolent. It reminds us of Jesus. When Jesus was with the disciples and he washed their feet, showing to us that nobody is above anybody. He showed it to us, humility. He showed to us love. Of course, he did it out of love. Charity. We talk a lot about charity, but in Spiritism, it is not the charity that we write the check or we go drop off clothes. That is good too, friends. But in Spiritism, charity, true charity, is when we give from our hearts without any expectation of return. Any. If you have an expectation, if you expect a smile, a thank you, we're expecting something. Charity is when we just give. We give without connections. It just goes to everybody that you could possibly reach. Chico didn't have much, but he gave what he could. He did. He really did. Resignation. Resignation to the designs of God. That is when we can say, yes, we believe in God. Faith. We resign to God. We don't second guess. Chico didn't second guess. Chico knew he had a tough life. He had diseases. At one point, one of the eyes was going blind. He could have said, you know what? I'm done with this. God, no, thank you. And instead he said, okay, God, you don't want me to have one eye? I'm supposed to work with the other one? Okay, I'll do it. And he did it all. Until hours and hours in the middle of the night without complaining, without asking to stop. Indulgence. Indulgence is when you forgive the mistakes of others. If you see somebody that made a mistake, instead of judging, you indulge. Chico was very indulgent. He didn't judge. And the one that we know that Emmanuel told him, discipline, discipline, discipline. Mediumship with Jesus, Spiritism with Jesus requires discipline. Why does it require discipline? Because it's not easy. So if we don't put ourselves on a plan, it's almost like we get a planner and we create our spirit evolution plan. Being very disciplined. Put a time and a date and how many hours we're going to dedicate to it. Discipline, discipline, discipline. We came with a mission. We have to do our best to fulfill it according to the divine laws. Otherwise, we might incur in even more things that we're going to come back in another existence and amend once again. So if we're looking for an inspiration in feeling what it is to understand Spiritism, feeling what it is to act according to the divine laws, following Jesus, using Chico as an excellent role model, I want to bring to you the feeling of listening directly from Chico. And let us look for his words, his kindness, how he's so selfless when he's talking, humble. It is an experience for us to feel it in our hearts. As I was listening to him earlier today on YouTube, it made me feel that I am really lucky to perceive Chico close. So let us embrace this opportunity, feeling in your hearts that Chico might be here with us, visiting us, involving us. Remember the law of the mental field? We're thinking of him. Why not? Why couldn't he come visit us? Let us hear from Chico together, friends.
Palavra sua, Chico. Nós estamos realmente muito sensibilizados com a gentileza da TV Tupi, Canal 4, e muito especialmente com as palavras do nosso caro apresentador, Dr. Almir Guimarães, porque nós não nos sentimos pessoalmente capazes de corresponder à expectativa do programa Pinga Fogo, sempre de tão elevado gabarito. Quando convidados para esta assembleia, fizemos ver aos nossos caros amigos, senhor Gonçalo Parada e senhor Saulo Gomes, que outros companheiros da doutrina espírita, com o brilho e com a eficiência de que eu não disponho, poderiam representar de maneira adequada os nossos princípios em nossa reunião. Eles, com a gentileza de sempre, indicaram um nome, eu não pude me omitir, contando para isso com o amparo dos nossos amigos espirituais, sempre solícitos em nos assistirem com a transmissão de seus ensinamentos, e tão somente por isso estou aqui declarando de início que eu não tenho qualidades para sentar-me no lugar que momentaneamente ocupo. Agradeço muito esta honra e rogo a todos os nossos companheiros de fé, a todos os companheiros de convicção espírita, para que me ajudem com as suas vibrações fraternas, de vez que eu estou aqui naturalmente muito receoso de cometer mais erros gramaticais e mais incivilidades do que aquelas que eu costumo praticar na vida comum. Estou confiante no Espírito de Emmanuel, que prometeu assistir-nos pessoalmente, e que tanto sou um instrumento muito imperfeito, e declaro com sinceridade que, ante as respostas que forem formuladas, responderei aquelas que ele puder encontrar em mim recursos para esclarecer. Mas, quanto a quaisquer outras perguntas de que eu não seja capaz para oferecer a ele a necessária instrumentação, eu rogo desculpas a todos. Agradeço ainda a todos os companheiros de São Paulo, aqui na nossa instituição Comunhão Espírita Cristã, em Uberaba, e nós, pessoalmente, devemos tanto. Estimaríamos visitar a todos em pessoa. Nós estamos visitando a todos nesta casa, que é, para nós, um dos maiores paradigmas de nossa cultura e de nossa arte em São Paulo e no Brasil.
Muito bem, Chico. Eu disse no início do programa.
Friends, I will leave you with Chico Xavier in his images saying, without charity, there is no salvation. So now our dear Carol is going to bring to us another side of the story.
Thank you, Paloma, so much. You brought so many beautiful resources to us. Together, we learned that we don't reincarnate by chance, that there's a lot of planning that goes on into one lifetime. We also learned that life is a beautiful school, and through Chico Xavier and above all our guided model, we know that we are spiritually wealthy. Why? Because we have received tools to have the light of reasoned faith inside of us, and that can truly transform lives. But the question for us tonight is it enough for us to say that we are spiritists? Is it enough for us to faithfully turn on the computer at 7 p.m. every Friday and listen to the Friday inspirational thoughts? Is it enough for us to have Kardec radio on 24/7? Is it? What does it mean to be a spiritist from the perspective of immortality, to illustrate how to apply these tools onto our lives? Because, friends, spiritism is a set of divine tools. But just like material tools, if we don't utilize them, they go to rot. So we would like to bring to all of our attention the case of Brother Jacob. Brother Jacob is a spirit, and in his last reincarnation, he embraced Spiritism as well. He was very, very charitable and well known as a spiritist. He participated of mediumistic meetings, he was a spirit counselor, and he literally came back through the mediumship of Chico Xavier to tell us how his passage in life after life went about. So is it enough for us to call ourselves spiritists, to live a quote-unquote good life in the divine immortal sense? Brother Jacob came back to tell us. And although this book, I Came Back, is not yet fully published, is not yet published into English, our dear Vanessa has studied this book on Kardec Radio. So if you would like, dear friend, you can listen and watch the studies of this book done by our dear Vanessa. So let us see what Brother Jacob tells us about life after life when we call ourselves spiritists. So Brother Jacob, dear friends, brings to us a lesson of coherence. What does it mean to be coherent? It involves aligning our thoughts, feelings, and actions together, meaning it involves walking the talk. Let us learn from Brother Jacob how life after life goes about in terms of the fact that we are being called in this lifetime to apply what we have learned. Because as Master Jesus has told us and taught us, much will be asked of those who have received much. As Paloma showed us, we have received many divine tools. The question is, are we truly utilizing them? So here's Brother Jacob, dear friends, at the moment of his discarnation, the moment of his transition. And we notice in this picture that he's very well assisted, that the renowned spirit doctor Bezerra de Menezes is present, his discarnate daughter is present, but we see that he still has fluidic links to his material objects. In this drawing, we see the energetic fluidic ties between himself and the objects that he held dear to his heart. So first lesson in coherence that Brother Jacob illustrates to us. Have we been practicing detachment? In other words, when we use, for instance, our cell phones, when we use our computers, do we call it ours? When we relate to our family members, do we call them ours? Because as Emmanuel brings to us in a message published in the latest issue of the Spiritist magazine, if we attach too much of our ego to those close to us, to our material objects, our discarnation may be more challenging for us because our perispiritual body may be heavier than it needs to be. So as Vanessa brought to us in the beginning of the session tonight, are we stopping to think that we are spirits in transition on the earth? In other words, are we doing a daily exercise to think that we are not here forever and that at one moment in time we will have to say goodbye to all that we call our possessions? We know that we believe that, and we know that we read that, we know that we study that, but do we really feel it? That's our first reflection question of this moment from Brother Jacob. Another lesson on coherence for us. As spiritists, we know that life goes on. But when we see those who are transitioning, when we visit funeral homes, do we say, rest in peace? Do we believe that those whom we know will become angelic entities overnight? Because if we do, we need to bring the teachings closer to the temples of our hearts and allow the teachings to cleanse older beliefs and open ourselves up to new habits. Because as we can see in Brother Jacob's narrative, he didn't change overnight after discarnation. In fact, he is right there watching his own funeral ceremony, and he's still dealing with feelings and impressions that he had of his life, physical life. He didn't transform overnight. So are we, beloved friends, still holding on to the belief that those who discarnate transform overnight? Because if we are, we need to recalibrate ourselves and actually feel the feelings, feel the teachings, and come to believe that no one is transformed to the level of a pure spirit overnight, that everything in nature is gradual. Another lesson on coherence from Brother Jacob. We see here that he's experiencing difficult feelings after he gets ready to transition to the spiritual colony, because he's visited by spirits who are more illuminated than he is. He's still experiencing envy and jealousy. He's still holding on to a false sense of superiority. But if we truly believe that we are immortal and unique children of God, we know that no one is quote unquote better or worse than we are. We know that God has created us for a very specific purpose. We know that we have a unique role in God's creation. We know that we are co-creators with divine purposes on the earth. So are we ready to cleanse ourselves from these feelings of false superiority? How much is our ego still blinding us? This is another lesson coming from Brother Jacob's real life narrative. Another lesson that Brother Jacob brings to us is that he transitions to the spiritual colony and re-encounters old affections, so to speak. So he confirms to us that our ties of love and affection don't die, never end. They are immortal and eternal, as Paloma brought to us, confirming the fundamental principles of Spiritism. So are we living this life physically, knowing and believing that no one we know is lost when they pass over? Another lesson from Brother Jacob. Another point that Brother Jacob's real-life narrative brings to our attention is that we continue studying in the spiritual realm. Vanessa brought to us in the beginning of tonight's session how much of a blessing it is for us to study, because it is through study that we sculpt our spirit and allow for us to expand our vision of our own selves and others. This opportunity will continue. So do we know that even when we go to sleep and our bodies rest, we can pray to ask for God's permission to study in the spiritual realm? Life really goes on, and Brother Jacob is here to confirm it to us. One of the final lessons that Brother Jacob's narrative brings to us is that although we may be, quote unquote, faithful spiritists and checking all the boxes in terms of what we think we should do, if we don't feel the teachings and apply the teachings onto our hearts, the minds that are connected to us, as Paloma explained, through the law of affinity, and those who observe us from the spiritual realm as discarnate spirits will notice our lack of coherence. They will notice that sometimes we say that we like charity, that we are faithful, but when push comes to shove, we are not able to practice what we say. This is the case of what happened to Brother Jacob. Even though he was a counselor while incarnated during mediumistic meetings, he was not able to convince spirits such as the one we see in this picture. Why? Because the spirit knew that he did not always was loving as he asked the spirit to be. Therefore, the spirit, who as a discarnate entity could read his thoughts and feelings like a plasma TV that is projected outwards, knew the gaps between his words and his actions at times. So that spirit was literally pointing fingers at him. Thus, the question that we ask ourselves tonight therapeutically, based upon the fact that we know that thought is life and that we are incarnated to progress from the inside out, our question is, how coherent are we? How coherent have we been with all the teachings that Paloma has shared with us? Are we striving to align our feelings and thoughts with our actions based on our belief system? Brother Jacob learned that he needed to be humble and to do introspection and to truly reach out to others, not only with words, but with feelings, giving of himself, of his vitality, of his love to others, like Chico Xavier had done, in order to truly become a Spiritist. It wasn't enough, he learned, to say the words without charity. There would be no salvation, as Paloma brought to us. It was really even more important for him to practice it. So we see him practicing charity by silencing himself, no longer speaking, but rather embracing that spirit in need with his love, attention, and care. So Brother Jacob's narrative helps us to understand how to be more coherent ourselves, how to align our thoughts, feelings, and actions with the beliefs that we hold dear to our hearts. In other words, how to walk the talk. The pathway is threefold, dear friends. In question 919 from the Spirit's Book by Allan Kardec, Kardec asks, how can we progress even more quickly during one reincarnation? And the spirits answer, know ourselves. We need to know ourselves. But how so? We need to study our tendencies. So if we are still attached to our ego, to our possessions, if we still believe that we need to have the final word at home, if we still believe that everyone has to listen to us, perhaps we need to make a chart of our own moral evolution, as Paloma wisely invited us to do, and write down, we need to work on pride. What could be a virtue that could counteract that? Humility. So we could create a list of virtues like Benjamin Franklin has done, so that we can educate ourselves. Knowing ourselves is very important so that we can align our thoughts, feelings, and actions with our beliefs. What else can we do? We are here to acquire new habits because we have been practicing the same mode for many lives. As Vanessa explained to us, all we need to do is look at the history of humanity to find out who we had been before. In order to really progress, we need to be open to the new and practice self-sacrifice. What does it mean to sacrifice? Many people may say, oh, Carol, don't say this word, knock on wood. We don't like sacrifice, but sacrifice, dear friends, simply means to go beyond our limits, to push ourselves a bit every day. And on chapter 20 of the book, Thought and Life, Emmanuel says to us, evolution demands that we develop new habits, that we detach ourselves from lower forms and walk towards higher stages of evolution. So, as Vanessa has brought to us many times, we need to be athletes of the good. We need to break our own records. We need to push ourselves a little further so we can expand our ability to love. And our third suggested course of action here, dear friends, is to put love into action through the practice of charity in the gospel. According to Spiritism, there's a chapter devoted to this. It's chapter 15. And one way that we can practice charity right at this moment, for instance, is to vaccinate ourselves against the coronavirus, because then we would not only be preserving this beautiful physical vest that was given to us by God with much planning and devotion in the higher realms, but we would be thinking of the general good, stopping the spread of a virus that can be deadly. So this is a beautiful form of charity, for instance, that allows for us to put love into practice. There are many other forms, including, for instance, offering of ourselves, of our vibration, of our time, of our patience, of our attention to one another, including at home. So let us think tonight about how can we put love into action, get to know ourselves more deeply, and as a result, acquire new habits, becoming athletes of the good. Because, dear friends, we need to evaluate ourselves. Do we adopt, or have we adopted, a checkbox mentality? I have done this tick, done this tick, done this tick. Or are we truly working on our inner transformation? Because when we do focus on our inner transformation, like Brother Jacob, who decided to start devoting his time, attention, patience, and love to spirits in need, we allow our light to finally shine. And this is our destination, because we have Master Jesus as a model of coherence, someone on earth who truly walked the talk, loving unconditionally, asking our Father, Mother God to forgive us all at the moment of great transformation for him, as he left the earth and ascended to the highest of all realms. So we pay tribute to the master of love in action, to the master of new habits, to the master of self-knowledge and coherence, who has opened a pathway for all of us to follow and allow our lights to shine. So, with much gratitude and love for Master Jesus, we pass the word back to our dear Vanessa.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Paloma. A lot of food for thought for us. We have received much from Spiritism, as we've heard at the beginning the story, what happened to Kardec, how the Spirit's book itself at some point came back to his hands and renewed himself so he could go on. We hope that we also realize the treasure we have at hand and no longer postpone a much needed study and an unpostponable transformation, as Carol and Paloma mentioned. Now, I'm going to share a note that Virginia left me before she went downstairs. As she was watching the children's program, she overheard our story about Kardec. And she said, Mom, tell them that the story is portrayed in Kardec's movie that can be found on Netflix. And I forgot, and that's true. So tonight at 11 p.m., we see the details of the story told by the spirit, friends of André Luiz and Lário Silva, through Chico Xavier. And you can see more of the visuals in the amazing movie, Kardec. We're going to finalize with a prayer that Carlos is going to lead for us. Right, Carlos?
Yes. Okay, let's close our eyes and get or continue connected with good spirits. And we would like, dear Master, to humbly express our gratitude to you and to all the entities that you sent to help all of us. Because we receive so many blessings every single second of this life. And most of the time, we don't even realize that. We beg you to allow us to continue learning every single day so we can have a better structure to understand the true life. Again, Master Jesus, we need to thank you and ask you to keep protecting us so we can get closer to you. And we would like to ask you permission to stop for now and continue tonight with all this magnificent learning that you allow us to have. And so be it.
Thank you, Carlos. And here we have our friends also, Luciana and Daisy, who had a wonderful teaching to share with the kids. Would you like just to briefly lead us into what you were teaching the children that is also important for us? Thank you, Daisy and Luciana.
Yes, sure, Vanessa. So tonight we had a beautiful lesson on thinking the good. As we were talking here also about our connections and how we attract what we emit. So we were practicing with the children how we can choose to look at situations, even especially hard situations in life, but find something good, something positive. And we told them Jesus' story about when he was walking with the disciples and they saw a dog that was already dead, but Jesus, looking for the good, taught us, and he said, oh, he must have had beautiful teeth. So, and then after seeing a very cute video about ways to practice seeing the good, they had a great activity with Luciana on how they can practice in different situations, seeing the good throughout their day. Right, Lu?
Right. And this week, we're calling the whole family to be part on this activity to seeing the good in situations in which we think is bad. But there's always a positive, there's something that we can take from the situation and change how we think. And like Paloma said in the beginning of the talk, we vibrate, we have all the energies around us. So if we change the way we think and think positive, we also gonna attract and see positive things around us. So the whole family can work together and look at the image that what we provide to them this week so they can see the positive in everything.
Thank you so much, Daisy and Luciana, for building up together with the team this lesson and sharing with the children. For now, friends, if you still have a question or a comment, suggestion, remember, we are here to listen from you. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., we'll be in our headquarters at the Spiritist Society of Virginia, and we're going to resume our gospel under the pine tree from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. We're going to pray together outdoors, not inside the center, under the trees. And we also offer the spiritually magnetized water for those who want it, as well as the opportunity for people who want to buy Spiritist books. It's going to be like a mini Spiritist book fair outdoors. And for those who also want to help us reaching out to more people who are in need, because though the United States is moving forward, trying to overcome the pandemic, there are many families who are still in need of help. So if you want to help, bring a non-perishable food item to be donated. You don't need to bring 10,000 things. Sometimes we have a can or a pack of pasta. You don't need, remember, it's about the intention. Some people are like, oh, I'm not going to go because I don't have anything. We all have something. That you don't need to go to the supermarket, buy more. If you want to, you can, but there's no need. And come along because we're going to pray and the good spirits are prepared to help us and everyone who is connected to us and even more. So thank you, friends. We'll see you either tomorrow here or some other time, either at Cardiac Radio or in our Friday Inspirational Talk. Thank you so much.